respond to 4,000 people being shot in Chicago and be glad you got a president who's
There's a
finally going to talk about it.
practicality to him, though.
Yeah, everything with him is, what do we need to get done? How can we fix it? What's going to work? It's total common sense. This is the first pure entrepreneur we've ever had as a president. And as you know, I'm writing a book on understanding Trump that will come out this summer. And it's partly based on the idea that he is so different than anything we've ever seen, including me, by the way. I mean, I find myself every day studying Donald Trump and trying to figure out what is he doing, because he's so much more complicated than I would ever have thought possible.
In a good way.
In a good way, in the sense of a really smart senior guy who has solved problems his whole life, who has been practical his whole life, who's proven to us with his cabinet he can recruit a good team.
Isn't it true? The amazing thing is, if you apply, remember the Grace Commission back in the Reagan years? Let me backtrack. Grace Commission, the biggest, best, smartest business minds in the country, they came up with recommendations how to run government more like a business. And how many were adopted? 0.
Right.
Okay, so now you have somebody that's actually implementing them without even a commission.
I mean, now you actually have, but now you have a business leader who, first of all, is not afraid to make mistakes. This is part of what the news media doesn't get. Of course Trump's going to make mistakes. He's doing more original, unique things than any president in modern times. Well, nobody can do all that and not make mistakes. But he knows, as an entrepreneur, you make a mistake, you back up, you correct it, you learn from it, you move forward. Other guys would sit around and plan for 7 years before they tried anything.
Right.
He'd have done 600 things by the time their plan was finished.
Yeah. Now, if you were Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, or if you were advising Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, what would you say to them?
Well, first of all, they're very smart people, and they're very good friends of mine. McConnell knows more about running the Senate.
I'm more skeptical of...
No, McConnell knows more about running the Senate than I will know in my lifetime.
He did a great job holding off that seat.
This will drive you nuts.
Oh, great.
Paul and I were talking tonight.
Yeah.
We may be the two most wonkish speakers in the history of the United States. We both love ideas. We both love public policy. I'm going to try to be helpful to him on tax policy and health policy and balancing the budget. And I'm an optimist that it's going to be painful and difficult and confusing, and people are going to yell at each other. They did that when I was Speaker.
But slowly over time, they chipped away at your credibility, and it just, and wore you down, tried to wear you down.
I didn't have Donald Trump with me.
That's a good point. All right, stay right there. Newt Gingrich is going to stay with us. We'll have more with him in just a few minutes. But first, tonight, in his first address to a joint session of Congress, President Trump talked about the need to fix America's crumbling infrastructure. Let's watch this.
To launch our national rebuilding, I will be asking Congress to approve legislation that produces a $1 trillion investment in infrastructure of the United States, financed through both public and private capital, creating millions of new jobs. This effort will be guided by two core principles: Buy American and Hire American.
And here now with reaction is the Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao. Madam Secretary, good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Can you explain the public-private capital and how that's going to work?
You know, the needs of our nation to improve our infrastructure is so great that the federal government cannot assume the cost for all of it. So it behooves us as a nation to address the deteriorating infrastructure by thinking about new and innovative ways in which we can fund our infrastructure. And so President Trump has so many really exciting and novel ideas about how to finance our deteriorating infrastructure so that once again we will become more competitive in the worldwide environment, and so that America can be great once again. So public-private partnerships are a very important part of financing, of a new way of financing our roads and bridges that are in disrepair and are very dangerous. Sure.
Explain how that works, though.
Yeah, I will. So basically, we allow different kinds of money, private sector money, to come into the United States. I'm not saying foreign, to come and fund, let's say, a bridge or a road, or it can be any kind of infrastructure. By the way, I should also add that the president's initiative on infrastructure will include probably energy, water, broadband. So it's not just roads and bridges, but it's to build the whole infrastructure that will make our country more competitive going forward. So public-private partnership allows private sector money to come into the economy and fund public works. So far, right now, there are so many impediments to allowing private sector monies to come in. And we should do away with all those impediments. Yes.
Well, so maybe, if I'm hearing you properly, maybe what you're saying is that, for example, if a company were to rebuild a road, they might get their investment back by, say, having a toll on that road, and this way the taxpayers don't pay a penny, they make a profit, it's a win-win, something like that?
Yes, thank you for putting it that way. You know, that is certainly one example of how that would work. Now, I have to say there are some people who may not support toll roads, but we have to take a look at all of these financing mechanisms because, once again, the needs of our infrastructure are so great that the federal government cannot and should not be the only source of funding to repair our bridges, our roads, you know, our energy grid, and to install new aspects of the infrastructure for a new America of the future.
Madam Secretary, I think that's what Speaker Gingrich was talking about. Donald Trump thinks way out of the box, and the country needs that type of innovative thinking. Thank you for being with us. All right, coming up earlier tonight, in his first address to a joint session of Congress, President Trump promised to defeat ISIS. Deputy Assistant to the President, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, along with former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, will join us. All of that and House Freedom Caucus members and Louis Gohmert are standing by.
The time for small thinking is over. The time for trivial fights is behind us. We just need the courage to share the dreams that fill our hearts, the bravery to express the hopes that stir our souls, and the confidence to turn those hopes and those dreams into action. I believe that real and positive immigration reform is possible as long as we focus on the following goals: to improve jobs and wages for Americans, to strengthen our nation's security, and to restore respect for our laws. If we are guided by the well-being of American citizens, then I believe Republicans and Democrats can work together to achieve an outcome that has eluded our country for decades.
And welcome back to Hannity, as we are broadcasting tonight from our nation's capital, where President Donald Trump earlier this evening addressed a joint session of Congress, and we continue again with former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. I have a very hard time filtering, getting to, how do they get to the conclusion that somehow, if somebody wants to be a guest in our country and they come from a country tied to terror, that it's a horrible thing to vet them, or that it's a horrible thing to protect our borders and know who's coming into our country? Why is that?
Well, look, I mean, I can just tell from those statements you're a right-winger.
And a racist and a xenophobe and a homophobe.
If you're on the left, you say first, remember the guy who stood up at the Oscars. You're an American, if you're a left-winger, you say, first of all, why do we have borders? Why do you distrust people? Well, you go down this list, and I was watching, the person I cued off of most was Elizabeth Warren, because I could see her very
clearly. I watched her, too.
And every once in a while, towards the end, she actually broke down and stood and applauded.
Yeah.
I mean, she couldn't help herself. But it was kind of fun to watch, because even when Trump said stuff that you knew was an applause line that they really, I mean, she would manage to discipline herself to not to do. She wasn't for American jobs.
How does that go over with the American people that they're...
Oh, they look nuts. Look, I've said to you before that with Thatcher, Thatcher is much more like Trump than Reagan, because the left responded in Britain to Thatcher so intensely that they went further and further and further to the left. And finally, by 1987, in her second re-election, the press referred to him as the loony left. Mm-hmm. And if you watch what's happening, it's going to be very interesting. All of those left-wing activists watched the Democrats tonight. Nobody jumped up and booed. Nobody walked out. Many of them actually, a couple times, all of them got up and applauded.
Yeah, but
now they're going to have to go back home and have all these nutcake left-wing activists say, why did you sell us out?
Even the Rasmussen poll, a plurality of Democrats want them to work with Trump.
Right.
But they maybe got on their feet 3 or 4 times.
Well, look, but this is the crisis they've got. The
hard left.
The hard left will kill them. The ones who want them to work with Trump are going to go fishing or to a football game. Mm-hmm. And so you go back home. I mean, the people who are showing up at these various town hall meetings are the hard left. And the hard left, that's why Schumer, who is a natural deal maker, I mean, Schumer and Trump ought to be able to sit down as fellow New Yorkers and get a lot done. But Schumer knows his left wing will kill him.
So he won't do it.
And that's part of it.
Let me ask you.
Let me just one other thing about this, because it was so amazing. If you go through and outline this, it would be a great thing to do if a professor was willing to actually be semi-pro-Trump. If you went through and outlined this speech, the number of specific policies that he got through in about an hour to taking out the applause time is astonishing.
It was all the promises he made, which I go back to. Here, I guess, is there. You said you spoke to Paul Ryan. I had an interview with Paul Ryan recently.
Right.
He promised, yeah, he supports the Trump agenda, and he said they're going to get all of this done legislatively. He believes in 200 days, and he's built in even a cushion in case something doesn't work out well. And then he talked about the health care bill being repealed and replaced. And then I talked to some of the guys in the Freedom Caucus who are going to join us in a minute, and they're saying to me, well, we haven't seen the bill, we haven't read the bill, and they're worried.
Which is why it's going to take 200 days. I mean,
we're not going to get a health care bill for 200 days for an economic?
No, here's my point. The most Ryan can do, and he's extraordinarily bright, is he can put together the benchmark bill everybody fights over. But he can't ram anything through. He doesn't have the muscle to ram anything through. Furthermore, it would be bad government to ram it through, and he couldn't get it through the Senate.
There's also some complicated issues as it relates to reconciliation. It's got to be revenue neutral. I got that.
Not just that. Let me give you an example of revenue neutral. For Republicans to allow the Congressional Budget Office to score anything is insane. The Congressional Budget Office was off by trillions of dollars. It is a left-wing, totally dishonest institution, and they ought to get rid of it and go to a different scoring system.
Yeah, well, I agree, and I think that's smart, too. What would be if you were Speaker, you have the Freedom Caucus, the more conservative side, then you have some Republicans, maybe 20 or so, that are in district where Hillary Clinton carried the district. Yeah. So how do you bring that and create a coalition that's going to advance the agenda, get everything that we heard tonight actually done? Because we need the jobs, we need safety, security, we need health care reform,
You do two things.
What do you do?
First, you listen, and you listen, and you listen until you can't stand it. And in that process, everybody gets out in the open what they need. Second, you say to each group, you tell me what you need in order to vote yes. Now you tell me what you need in order to vote yes. You tell me what you can't live with. You tell me what you can't live with. And you gradually build a box.
And you think that's going to happen?
Well, we balanced the budget 4 straight years. So, yeah, I think it's
Great
doable.
Job. You're going to balance the budget again? You're going to show them how to do it?
Going to work with it.
Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. It's great to be in your hometown. Also, tonight, President Trump used the term we have never heard the Obama White House use: radical Islamic terrorism. Watch this.
Our obligation is to serve, protect, and defend the citizens of the United States. We are also taking strong measures to protect our nation from radical Islamic terrorism. We have seen the attacks in France, in Belgium, in Germany, and all over the world. It is not compassionate, but reckless to allow uncontrolled entry from places where proper vetting cannot occur. Those given the high honor of admission to the United States should support this country and love its people and its values. We cannot allow a beachhead of terrorism to form inside America. We cannot allow our nation to become a sanctuary for extremists.
Joining us now with reaction is the Deputy Assistant to the President, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Obviously protecting the homeland, that is tied to extreme vetting, that is tied to building the wall and border security. And the President laid down a marker in the campaign. And again tonight, this job is getting done. How quickly?
You heard tonight, he said we're going to build a great wall. Tomorrow morning you can expect some news about the immigration executive order.
So they've redone the order.
Yep, we've addressed all the politically motivated issues that the court said were potentially problematic from their perspective. And I think the most important thing tonight, did you hear the phrase that he said most clearly and most loudly? There was a lot of buzz in the left-wing media in the last 24 hours that, oh, there's turmoil in the White House and arguments over vocabulary.
By the way, it's just not true.
No,
I know for a fact.
It's
I've seen you there.
It's not true.
Yeah.
And what happened tonight? They expected us to dilute the verbiage. He
Not
said,
a bit.
Radical Islamic terrorism. Politico, did you hear it? New York Times, did you hear it? Washington Post, CNN, did you hear it? The president is not backing down.
You wrote a book and you believe we can defeat them.
Yes.
It's got to be a monumental task to achieve. Systematically, if you lay out the strategy and tactics to achieve that goal, how do you do it?
You do it very simply. You use the best military the world has ever seen, ours, to help local actors defeat ISIS. ISIS is the 5-meter target. Right now, we have to crush and kill that organization because they've done something no other jihadi group has managed to do in 90 years. Since the dissolution of the original caliphate, these are the first people to create a new one. Not Al-Qaeda, not the Muslim Brotherhood, ISIS. We have to take that down with our Muslim allies, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, help them fight this.
Do you think the
themselves.
Jordanians, Egyptians, the Saudis, Israel, the UK, the US can unite? And I know Americans, and the president addressed this, we spent $6 trillion on wars in the Middle East. He does not have the stomach for it, nor do I think the American people. So what is our contribution? Is it intelligence? It's certainly not going to be boots on the ground, I don't believe.
It's leadership. The biggest contribution is leadership. You heard right at the beginning of the speech, America is back and America is going to lead. So number one, it's not fake smoke and mirrors coalition. You know, the vaunted Obama 68-nation coalition didn't exist. I was there. I went into theater. I went to CENTCOM. There were 2 Muslim nations in the briefing room out of the 60.
What do you know about this developing coalition? I asked the Prime Minister of Israel in a recent interview about the developing relationship with the Saudis, the Egyptians, Jordanians. My interpretation is it's deeper than anybody really knows, and certainly they would be an alliance against Iranian hegemony in the region.
Look, if anybody knows how serious the threat is...
Oh, it's Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Yeah.
And by the way, and Donald Trump. I would argue this, excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to interrupt you. Benjamin Netanyahu has been alone in understanding evil in our time. People forget Stalin, communism, fascism, Nazism, Imperial Japan, the killing fields. 100 million human souls died. So evil exists in the name of communism, Nazism, fascism. Right? All right, so evil does exist. Yep. Its current form is called radical Islamic terrorism, and there's a whole group of people in this country that won't even admit it.
This is perhaps the most important thing. We're not going to talk about jobs for jihadis. We're not going to talk about root causes.
Man-caused disasters,
no,
overseas contingencies.
We have to understand, this is evil incarnate. Whether you're a Nazi running a death camp or whether you're a jihadi in ISIS.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Agreed.
Same thing. And we are going to put that back into the discussion. Remember the word he used several times that we have not heard for 8 years. He used the word enemy. We haven't used that.
Also said one other thing, and I appreciated this. If we're going to fight, win. Yes. You've got to win.
Sean, let's take politics out of it, the administration. I met Mr. Trump for the first time in the summer of 2015. The first conversation I had, within 3 minutes, I knew 2 things about this man. A, he knows we are at war. B, he wants to win that war. What you saw tonight is the dedication to make that a reality now that he's the commander-in-chief.
Well said. Dr. Gorka, good to see you, my friend.
Thank you, Sean.
Appreciate it. And coming up tonight, in his address, President Trump called on Congress to repeal and replace Obamacare. Republicans have been promising Americans they do this for years. On Hannity, we are holding them accountable. We'll check in with Congressman Dave Brack, Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan, Louis Gohmert. All join me next right here on set. That and more as we continue from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C.
A new national pride sweeping across our nation. and a new surge of optimism is placing impossible dreams firmly within our grasp. What we are witnessing today is the renewal of the American spirit. Our allies will find that America is once again ready to lead. Calling on this Congress to repeal and replace Obamacare with reforms that expand choice, increase access, lower costs, and at the same time provide better health care. Mandating every American to buy government-approved health insurance was never the right solution for our country. The way to make health insurance available to everyone is to lower the cost of health insurance, and that is what we are going to do. Obamacare is collapsing, and we must act decisively to protect all Americans. Action is not a choice, it is a necessity. So I am calling on all Democrats and Republicans in Congress to work with us to save Americans from this imploding Obamacare disaster.
All right, that was President Trump earlier tonight saying that Obamacare must be repealed and replaced. Now, for years, Republicans have been promising you, the American people, they would do just that if given the opportunity. Well, now they have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. No excuses. Now, on this show, we have been holding Washington accountable as a new segment, and we're doing just that. Joining us now with reaction are four GOP lawmakers: Virginia Congressman Dave Bratt, North Carolina Congressman Mark Meadows, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, and Texas Congressman Louis Gohmert. The prior three are members of the Freedom Caucus. You have an announcement.
All right.
They just invited you into their caucus.
We have talked, and I've
negotiated a deal.
Joining the Freedom Caucus.
All right, so Louis, you're in.
Yeah, you brokered the deal.
I brokered the deal, and that means you got a car coming, American made, of course.
Yeah, a little.
All right,
you're invited in too, you know.
Well, I appreciate it. I do. Listen, I had an interview, as you all know, with the Speaker, and I since even had a conversation with the Speaker. He committed to me on this show that he supports the entire Trump agenda that the president spoke about tonight, and that he can get this done legislatively with a cushion built in 200 days. Okay. You guys are worried you haven't seen the repeal and replace bill. All four of you have told me that. What are you worried about, and what did you think of Speaker Gingrich saying that he's going to put all these things in a box and it's going to be adjusted after it gets scored?
Well,
this member goes first.
I got to see the bill before I can agree to anything. I'm kind of anal like that. I'd like to read the bill. You remember 2010? We all said, if you elect us, you give us the majority, we will read the bills. So, back actually in 2014, Boehner had a bill that was going to be really a border enforcement bill. And when we finally got the bill 2 days before we were going to vote on it, it was a de facto amnesty bill, but you had to read very carefully. So it's important to read the bill.
Congressman Jordan?
Yeah, what we've heard about the leaked bill that's coming from leadership is it says we're going to repeal Obamacare, except we're going to keep the Medicaid expansion. It said we're going to repeal Obamacare, except we're going to keep tax increases. And it said we're going to repeal Obamacare, except we're going to start this new entitlement called refundable tax credit. So that's not repealed. So what we've said is be real basic, real simple. Put on President Trump's desk the exact same language we put on President Obama's desk. We all
repeal. You want a repealed bill.
Repeal, then a separate bill replaced.
At the same time?
Same time, but two different pieces of legislation.
So, because there's a danger, because within Obamacare, Congressman Meadows, there is the discretion of the Health and Human Services Secretary that would, if it's not repealed, if there's another Obama like the president, he would have that discretion to put it back in play.
Well, and I think that's why we have to have a full repeal, Sean. Really, when we're looking at this, Secretary Price, I trust him to do the right thing. He's a good man and was a colleague. But at the same time, we've got to make sure that we actually repeal it. We don't partially repeal it and partially replace it. And that's why it's critical that we get it right. I think we are all in agreement, whether it's moderates or conservatives, that we've got to repeal this thing and we've got to replace it for
in fairness, I asked Congressman Bratt, I asked the Speaker if He's having regular conversations. Apparently, I guess you guys, as a caucus, you meet once or twice a week. He said yes, he wants you. He mentioned you guys specifically and Louis that he wants to meet. Why are you laughing? John Boehner wouldn't even talk to you.
Oh yeah, he had something to say about me.
By the way, Louis Gohmert was so kind. He gave me the seat in the gallery tonight to watch.
You were so gracious. I mean, I looked up there. People were coming from all over the gallery to shake Sean Hannity's hand. It was really nice.
You invited me in 2014 to see Obama. It was a much better night.
Which was better.
It was a much better night. But as I said earlier, he says he wants to reach out to you. But all of you individually seem skeptical. Why?
Well, because we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. So Obamacare, right? You had to pass the bill before you know what's in it. So that's number one. And number two, we have 300 million people in this country we care about, right? So we don't want to worry about the insurance companies, the big insurers, and talk about an insurance problem. You hit it right in our bill, Sanford in the House, and then Rand Paul on the Senate side. What we have to do is bend the cost curve down. We haven't done that, right? Everybody's premiums out there are going up 20% still. So the first thing you got to do is inject free market economics into this. And we were talking about that. Grants, HSA.
But Paul Ryan reiterated that too with healthcare savings accounts, portability. We can now, believe it or not, it's illegal right now if you want it at a catastrophic plan, which is insane for a young person.
They're mentioning those as talking points and shopping across state lines, but it's not the driving force, right? And so if you're worried, when those insurance guys walked in the White House, they were looking at their shoe leather because they were embarrassed about the product that was coming our way. I think they knew it. It was a trade of 18 million more customers, and they would get covered, and they'd make some money. But they knew that it was going to be a death spiral system in the long run that could lead to, just national health care.
Health care is a big issue. I guess we got to see the bill scored. You guys have your bill along with Rand Paul. Here's the big picture for me. If the president is able to change the tax code from 7 brackets to 3, give us a 15% corporate tax, allow repatriation for multinational corporations, trillions that are parked overseas, they invest in factories, manufacturing centers here in America. If we become energy independent, it'll be like a tax cut if we do get rid of Obamacare. The economy I see growing and flourishing. Can all of that get done?
Economic renaissance.
You really?
I really believe it.
So millions of Americans out of work, in poverty, on food stamps, get out of poverty, back to work.
Well, and it's jobs. It's not just small, low-paying jobs. It's great jobs. And when you start to see a 4% or a 4.5% GDP growth, all of a sudden, I mean, it would be unbelievable. But the president knocked the ball out of the park tonight. I mean, he's delivering on his promises. We've been waiting for this city to do that, and the president's doing it.
Okay, so it really is going to come down now to Congress. Are you guys confident?
Our task is real simple. We make it way too complicated around here. Do what we told the voters we were going to do. President Trump gave that kind of speech tonight. He says now it's time to deliver on the things he promised the American people. We promised the American people that we would secure the border, build the wall.
I could be like a peace negotiator because I feel like I'm talking to groups that say the same thing, but you guys aren't communicating.
Well, there's one plan out there, Sean. There's one plan out there right now in health care that does exactly what we told the voters we were going to do. Repeal it.
Is Paul Ryan scoring that bill?
No, not we haven't had ours scored, but we know it'll score better than theirs. We know that.
Are you guys communicating?
We're meeting with him tomorrow morning. Actually, talk about all kinds of things.
Right.
So and health care will be first on the.
Because he said he wants to reach out to you, all of you.
We got a meeting tomorrow morning.
And what about his promise that he thinks he can get it done in 200 days?
We better.
We've got to get it done.
Got to get it done.
And by the way, there are people that keep saying, Sean and Mr. President, you got to understand, we're limited in what we can do in trying to repeal it because we're doing it through this mechanism that doesn't allow us to completely repeal. But Sean, this is exactly what we did in 2015, back when we did it in 2015.
So that's a good point. So you have Congressman Meadows?
Yeah, I think the real key is in the first 200 days, it can't just be about Obamacare repeal and replacement. It's got to be tax reform. It's got to be strengthening our military. It's got to be
everything the
VA. Everything you talked about in the first 200 days. If it doesn't get done then, it's not going to get done.
Okay,
and so we're committed to do
says
that.
He supports it. You guys say they support it. Maybe it's just me, but I've had a sense of urgency my whole life. What is this you guys get a week off last week? What is that?
For the last 6 years, we said we're going to repeal Obamacare.
Right.
American people like you are going to wake up with a heart attack if we replace Obamacare with Obamacare Light. Then they're going to say...
You worried about that?
Yes, I'm worried about that. And then they're going to say...
If they have the heart attack, they won't have good health care to take care of them.
And they're going to say that's not a repeal. You did not repeal a nationally, federally run health care system that's clogging the arteries.
Is it unrealistic for conservatives like me to wish that you guys could move at the speed of Trump? Is that unrealistic?
No, we should be moving it. And what you said is bipartisan. JFK, right? He did the tax cuts, and we got 5% real growth. Then Reagan comes in, does the tax cuts, you get 5% real growth. So it's not. We're not making this up. We can.
And you brought it up with Newt last night. They got the contract with America done in 100 days.
Right. Yeah. But he actually said tonight that this was a bigger, bolder agenda. By the way, I believe that.
I agree.
If this happens.
Yeah.
You know, I think the country's in a precipitous decline. I think if we don't do these things, and that's why I wanted Donald Trump to be president, that's why I'm so happy tonight. He reiterated his promises. He's keeping his word. I just want Congress to do it. You guys are committed to doing it.
Sean, the part I like most about the speech is at the start when he said, America's ready to lead.
That's right.
That set an entirely
Democrats sat on their hands.
They sure did. But think about the framework that we've been used to with President Obama, leading from behind, the Iran deal, his lack of relationship with our best ally, Israel. That set the tone.
I got to say goodbye. Louis is a new member of the Freedom Caucus. You guys go out drinking and celebrating. All right, have a good time.
All right, thanks, Sean.
All right, up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
My budget will also increase funding for our veterans. Our veterans have delivered for this nation, and now we must deliver for them.
President Donald Trump promising to protect America's vets, that and more as we continue from our nation's capital.
I am sending Congress a budget that rebuilds the military, eliminates the defense sequester, and calls for one of the largest increases in national defense spending in American history. My budget will also increase funding for our veterans. Our veterans have delivered for this nation, and now we must deliver for them.
All right, that was President Trump earlier tonight talking about the need to help America's heroes, our veterans. It's a topic that is also important to the 43rd President, George W. Bush, while in Dallas to talk about his brand new book, Portraits of Courage, a Commander-in-Chief's tribute to America's warriors. President Bush shared with me some of the stories behind these paintings. Take a look.
This is Melissa Stockton.
That was a great picture there. And another one. You've done a number of self-portraits.
Yeah, that was... Yeah, looked like Alfred E. Newman.
This one with this little baby girl is really cute.
Yeah, that's Lily from Roswell, New Mexico. And I was convinced when I met his mom and dad and saw Lily in the hospital he'd never get out. And I was shocked when I looked on the roster of people going to play in a golf tournament that Lily was on the roster. And he came and played and said, could he bring his daughter by to see me? And I thought it was... so the scar on his head points exactly to the little girl.
Wow.
Yeah. This brother in arms.
That's what you call that brother in arms.
Yeah, Gannon and Schumacher. It's an experimental painting in a way, in that I didn't complete a lot of it.
What part didn't you complete? I'm looking at them.
Like here. Yeah. This is just the hint of shoes. But the reason I did that is I wanted to emphasize the prosthesis, and then I love the idea of these two guys arm in arm, and. Both real good men.
We talked earlier about how often you go to Bethesda, Walter Reed. If you had to guess how many times you were over there?
Probably 6 times a year, I would guess. I don't know. There's Falkenberry, who you talk to.
Yeah. That's a great shot.
Yeah, he and Bobby Dove.
And some of these guys are really great golfers.
Yeah. Well, a couple of them back here are really good. Dan Nevin's story struck me. He lost both legs and is now a yoga instructor and believes yoga is an important way that people can heal. And he travels the country giving lectures. And Jay Barkley lives in Houston. There's big Scott Adams. Barkley lives in Houston. 45% of his body burned, father of 3, and sells, he's got a good job in the private sector.
You never told anybody you were painting them before you did it?
No.
Not one?
No.
Wow. Amazing.
I ride mountain bikes with Will a lot.
This is a different style, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit, Yeah. I mean, it evolves. Some of them have more paint than others. Will is a guy who works for Bell Helicopters, friend of mine, really good mountain biker. And now here is the, this is the piece.
This is 16
feet long.
15 long, right?
Yeah. And this is, I painted, as you can see, except for these two guys, the uniforms were pretty uniform because they were all part of something. Even though in different branches of the service, they were part of something bigger than themselves, serving the country.
You know what we're looking at? Isn't this the mural of heroes?
Yeah, it is. It's America.
Yeah.
It's people from all walks of life who put on the uniform, and they volunteer to do so. And so I tell people, what an amazing country. And one should not feel sorry for them, but we ought to be thankful to them.
We ought to be thankful.
And we ought to help them. And that's what we do here at the Bush Center. That's why I'm so thankful you came down, because I want to talk about, to vets who are listening, get on the bushcenter.org website. We can help you find a job, and we can help you deal with your invisible wounds of war. And if you're out there as a citizen who want to help, get on that website, and there's some programs in there that work.
Well, the book's phenomenal. Each individual story is phenomenal, and I'm impressed. 4 years in, this is pretty impressive. Mr. President, good to see you again, sir. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you coming.
Pretty amazing paintings of American heroes. All right, that's all the time we have left for this evening. From our nation's capital, as always, thank you for being with us. We'll be back in New York tomorrow night. We have a jam-packed show. Laura Ingraham, Ann Coulter, so many more people. We hope you'll join us, and we hope you have a great night.